Good evening. Good morning, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Gordon Dudu, and I'm an intern here at the MTA.
I'm also an intern as well, and we kind of made a cool slide cool PowerPoint to explain why Power BI should be used, especially in this office as well. So let's do a quick icebreaker. So, have you guys ever heard of Power BI? Show of hands. So only one
Yes.
person. Okay, perfect. No worries. Well, this whole presentation will be able to inform you what Power BI is. So, since only one person knows what Power BI is, I guess we move on to the next slide.
By the end, I'm sure we all gonna like
Exactly.
Power BI.
hmm
Okay, the goals of this presentation is to demystify the Power BI and also to teach you how to use Power BI with Excel.
Right. So this presentation is. I don't want to make it sound like a lecture, right? It's going to be a lot of images as well to show you how it works, and we're also going to explain how to navigate through Power BI as well. So, me and Elizabeth did our best to make it as intuitive as possible. So let's move on to the next slide.
Why Power BI?
So I'm just questioning, like, since you guys haven't really heard of Power BI, well, we can answer that question for you, right? So on the next slide, oh yes, right here.
You can create appealing and interactive dashboards in Power BI, as well as visuals to interact with data, as well as provide user-friendly interface.
Right. So on the next slide, we'll provide an example of a spreadsheet. So, Brittany, you recognize this by any chance? This is our vehicle rental. We have the employee name, our VSC ID, and all this, right? But here's the thing: this is a spreadsheet, right? Yes, simplicity is key, but I feel like you can definitely get the most out of your data by being able to interact with it and play with it, right? So here's the next slide. We'll show you the more enhanced version of it. So isn't this more visually appealing? So like I said, simplicity is key, but Excel does have a feature where you can interact with the data. So Elizabeth will show us.
Okay, for instance, here, select the name. We can select maybe Armando
Or Damien Thomas.
or Damien Thomas, for instance. So it shows us that Damien Thomas, he uses both permanent and temporary when he's requesting for vehicle, and as well as his requests are attached. You can access his request documents as well.
Cool.
Thank you.
Right here, yes.
And furthermore, the dashboard shows us that Damien Thomas' total number of requests are 7.
Right.
It tells us his title. I think it's more visually appealing than the other spreadsheets
Right.
in
And
this table. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
But-
Definitely.
right.
More
But
appealing.
on top of that, right, besides being visually appealing in Power BI has definitely a lot of capabilities, right? And right now, this is the most simplest function we can for the scope of this entire presentation, because we do want to not drown you guys with too much information, right? But the fact that we're able to interact with the data, and that data basically updates constantly as you interact with it, right, as Elizabeth shows, right? We're able to also import links to that and be able to scroll each document for that specific person. For example, Damien Thomas. So on the very next slide, right, we have a comparison between Excel and Power BI, right? Then again, simplicity is key. But then again, if you want to be able to express your data and interact with that data, then Power BI is the way. Because sorry, you want to continue? Sorry.
It's fun.
Yes. So yes, Power BI is the way because you'll be able to interact with data. Yes. I know it's a little biased, but the pitch we're trying to pitch it to you guys. Right. And
Because that is the original data, but
Mhm.
we've imported the data into Power BI, and that is how you see it.
Yes.
So
Right.
that one's more
Right.
appealing.
And judging by the room right now, it looks. I'm not sure if you guys are a little not intimidated, but like a little confused. But it's okay. We will demystify it. That is our goal and objective. So let's move on to the next slide.
In this slide, step 1, we're going to show you how to go about to request for your Power BI to be installed in your computer. So you're going to open Office 365 browser, and then in step 2, you're going to click on Apps.
Right. And I also want to point out, you said you were new to the office, right? This is very important because if you do want to install other applications to your desktop, we're basically showing the steps on how to do that. So And of course, by the end of this presentation, we will also email you the documents so you can use that as reference. So Elizabeth, please continue.
In step 3, you're gonna go click on other apps, which is right over here. And then you click more in other apps. And in step 5, you're gonna scroll down and click on the ServiceNow icon.
Right. I know it's a lot to navigate, but just bear with the steps. It'll be quick and easy.
And in step 6, you're gonna make a request, which is right over there with the red circle. Step 7, you're gonna click desktop and laptop computing, which is right over here.
Right.
And then step 8, you're gonna click on desktop laptop software.
It's gonna be hard to see, but then again, the documents will be sent to you guys, so it'll be easy.
And then in step 9, you're gonna click hardware software, which is not in the catalog, non-mobile, which is not in catalog non-mobile,
Yes.
which is right over here. That's your step 9. And then in step 10, you will scroll down to this part here.
Right. After filling out your basic information.
After you finish filling, yes. All
And
your
also,
information.
please pay attention to the next prompt. These red highlighted squares, they're very important. So yeah, insert the information below. And that's basically how you set up an IT request to Power BI. And then again, I know 10 steps, it's a lot, but don't worry, document will be sent.
Okay, let's walk you through Power BI with an example.
Right, because the best way to learn Power BI is definitely with leading by example. So on the next slide, we'll present you this data. So right here, me and Elizabeth compiled a fake data set, right? And the file name is employee data. And also pay attention that the spreadsheet name is sheet format. And that's very important. So pay attention to this. So how do we enhance it? Of course, with Power BI. So like I said, Power BI is not as hard as you think. It's easy as 1, 2, 3.
So insert correct data in the first place, transform data with Power Query, and then drag and click visuals to display your data.
3 easy steps. Is that right, guys?
Simple as 1, 2, 3?
Yes. So we move on to the next slide.
Let's go over some Power BI best practices for step 1 before moving forward.
Right, and the best practices for Power BI also applies to other Microsoft applications as well, and I'll explain that more in depth on the next slide.
Converting spreadsheets to tables.
Right, so on right here what you're seeing is a regular spreadsheet, and on this sheet is a table, right? And obviously the visuals, there's color and there's no color. But here's the thing though, on the next slide, majority of Microsoft applications do require some format of table formatting. If you're using SharePoint List, Microsoft Power Apps, and of course Microsoft Power BI, and you're importing data from Excel, you have to have a table formatting. And why is that the case? Well, I'll answer that question. What is a table? Do you guys know what a table is? Like, it's just like, I'll go on, don't worry.
You got it.
Right, so properties of the table, right, is the first row is the column header, which is considered a data field. And under the column is headers are values. But as people, right, we recognize that the first row that contains letters obviously represents the data of each column, right? We intuitively expect employee name to be employee name, and the rows after that are the actual names of people. But however, Power BI does not recognize that, and other Microsoft applications does not recognize that the first row that contains letter represents column headers. So in order to allow Excel importing data from Excel to other Microsoft applications, we must indicate manually that Excel is a table. Does that make sense? If you guys have any questions, feel free to raise your hands if anything. So just quick recap, right? When working with other Microsoft applications, we must convert that spreadsheet to a table. And I'll show you why it's important. Like we covered before, the application must recognize how our data is formatted, because we as people know that the first row represents column headers, but Power BI, SharePoint, and Power Apps does not recognize that as a table. And also consistent data formatting. So I'll explain why that's important in this case. And I do want to point out, I know we're kind of derailing from the actual, presentation of why our tutorial to Power BI, but I also want to bring out that this is really good practice with other applications as well. So maybe in the near future, if you're using other applications, this whole principle applies to other applications besides Power BI. So consistent data, formatting of data. So example one, right? Let's say we're working with the Microsoft SharePoint list application, right? Totally different from Power BI, and we want to create a list. It'll basically prompt us to import Excel, right? And pay attention, employee data. It's not formatted as a table, it's a regular spreadsheet. And right here is employee data with table. It's the same exact data, but it's formatted as a table. I know it's confusing. I'm saying data table like interchangeably, right? But just bear with me. If we import the data as a regular spreadsheet, it will recognize as you don't have any tables in this file. But we specified as people that the first column row has letters that indicates that it's a column header. Microsoft SharePoint does not recognize that. If SharePoint does not recognize that, so is other Microsoft applications, including Power BI, including Power Apps, and other applications in Microsoft that uses big data. So this is a very important practice that's outside of Power BI. So we're going to explain how to create a table, which is quick and easy, right? So step one, click insert. Step two, click on table. Highlight the range of this table. Step four, you have a table design ribbon, right? And now you're able to name that table as employee data. But keep in mind though, after we named it as employee data, this is still named as sheet one. So please be wary of that. Our table is named employee data, but the spreadsheet name is sheet one. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't want to lose you guys. So yeah. Now Elizabeth will walk us through how to actually use Power BI.
You are greeted with this interface when you open Power BI. You're gonna click on Get Data first.
Right.
We have many options of data. We can start with the Excel. Actually, for this data of Brittany's request vehicles, take-home vehicles, it's in an Excel spreadsheet. So we will click on Excel to get the data.
Right. And I also do want to point out, right, there's another way of importing data, right? So if you click on Get Data, you'll be greeted with the same exact window, right? So just in case, if Power BI didn't load up correctly and this icon doesn't pop up, then you go right here to this specific ribbon under Home called Get Data.
We selected an Excel as the data source, right? So we will then click Connect.
Yes. So after, like Elizabeth said, we click Connect.
However, a few reminders. Over to you, Frank.
Exactly. So recall, right? This is what exactly? This is a sheet or table?
Sheet.
Perfect. And this is what exactly?
Table.
Yes. And this is very important, especially when we're working with Power BI. So when we're importing employee data, we get this icon. Remember, we're importing a sheet, it gets this specific icon through the navigator window. Yes.
Quick question, sorry.
Yeah.
The slide prior to this one, right?
Right.
Did you put sheet format at the bottom there, or did it format itself with that?
Oh no, I named it as sheet format.
Okay.
So it stays consistent throughout.
Okay,
So
okay.
this one should also be sheet format right here.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Because we're importing, okay, perfect. And then this second scenario, we're importing from employee data web table. So notice the icon is completely different, right? Because it's a table icon. But employee data, once we import this specific Excel file, we get two options: sheet one and employee data. I don't want to give too much information to drown you guys, but the best practice is always click employee data.
Instead of the employee.
So right here, I hope you guys can see the different icons, right? This is a regular spreadsheet, and this is a regular table that we want to import. And this is the way to go. All right. Any questions or no? Okay, perfect.
Notice our data set being displayed in Navigator window. The window previously, it's the same as this window. Okay.
Right, so we basically just completed step one already. All we did was convert a table, import that table through Navigator, and this scroll basically allows us to interact right here to see that all our headers, all our column headers matches with Excel data that we imported. And also, disclaimer, right? Power BI has this thing where it says load, right? A green icon can be very tempting to click on, but we're not done yet. We just completed step one. All we did was import an Excel file.
So, and we choose the employee data and then the employee data table.
Right.
But as we've done all that, like Frank has just said, that the load highlights,
Right. Hold
but we don't want to load yet.
Right. Yes.
Good question. When you're converting it from a sheet to the table, does the table keep the same format as the sheet? Because I think in one of the other slides, once it came over to a table, it said values instead of the actual value that was from the. You would have to go back a few slides. Not it wasn't
Right here.
no. It was a few slides like towards the beginning.
Yes.
Or no, it was back more. One of it.
Yeah,
Yeah. It was that one. Go back. If you go back one more.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see where it says value
On the
in
days
days,
column?
right?
Values
Does it keep
in-
the format, or you have to reformat it once it get like
Column G.
Column
Yeah,
G.
the
Right
end
here.
one.
right?
Oh, right. That was
So-
I left it there on purpose so we can show you how to clean the data.
Okay, so it
I-
doesn't
right.
keep. You have to update the format.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Because right now we're handling the manual side. Because step one is basically importing data, but step two is cleaning the data.
Okay.
Right. Then
We're
again.
heading to step
right.
2 now.
Right,
Okay.
exactly. Even though it's a common practice for us to clean data before sharing an Excel file, right?
Mhm.
But let's say hypothetically there's some minor issue, minor mistake, right? So we're gonna fix that.
Oh.
I'm glad you pointed that out because you're like 5 slides ahead. So navigator. Yeah, we're choosing this. We're importing this.
Okay.
Step 1 is now complete. So we're going to move over to step 2. We covered the importance of converting spreadsheet to table, and we also covered how to import Excel data into Power BI.
Right.
So let's look at step 2. Over to you,
Right.
Frank.
So step 1 we already imported. Now step 2 is just cleaning it and transforming the data.
Click transform. Although the load is highlighted, you will still want to transform the data. Like Frank said, that end column with days, it's mixed information. So it's only when you transform the data that those days will be, if on the top you have, like we have on the columns, we have 1, 2, 3 or A, B, C.
Oh yes, we will go over that in the next slide.
Yeah,
So
but we're gonna get there, but
right.
the purpose to
Right.
transform the data.
Is for us to clean it. So once
It's
we
to
click
clean.
on so once we click on transform data, right, it will now open Power Query. I know Power Query is we're throwing names left and right, but bear with me. Power Query is just a second. It just basically complements Power BI. Power Query is what we clean data with. That way it can feed to Power BI. I don't want to throw random like applications just to make you guys lost. All right, so Power Query allows us to clean data. Is that correct? Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, perfect.
So let's go over Power BI best practices for step 2 before moving forward.
And right here, right, just it's very simple. Just close an Excel file before transforming data, right? So if you're importing data, let's say in Excel, let's say hypothetically, if you're sharing a Excel document with somebody, right? And that person is constantly editing that data, but you're putting that data into Power Query. Power BI does not know what to do if that data is constantly updated by another person. You guys will get what I'm saying? If 2 people are sharing the same exact Excel file and someone else is constantly updating that Excel file while simultaneously we're trying to transform that data, Power BI will throw an error.
For instance, a good example, practical example, the SharePoint that we created for duplicate SVP
Right.
files, where you can access these 3 databases for take-home vehicles, UPP, and so
Right.
on, MPQs, which hopefully maybe your project would also go there, Daisy. A practical example is Brittany might be working on the take-home vehicles, or for instance, Tumeka is working on take-home vehicles, but you want to generate a report. So you cannot proceed to generate that report
If someone
until Tumeka
Tamala.
is closed.
Tumelo.
Tumelo is closing that report.
Right.
Is closing the Excel document
Yes.
that she's busy working on, and then you'll be able to summarize the
Yes.
report. Am I right?
Right. Yes. So basically, yes, As simple as that. Just close any Excel file that you're working with. That way Power BI doesn't get confused. Is that clear?
Wait,
Yes.
question. So if you have the document open, you're saying, right? If you have it open and working on it, then Power BI would not know how to
Right.
transfer.
Right. It will stop you as you trying to import the data. It will throw an error. Because if you have the application open, Power BI will assume that you're basically editing that data. So it's not finalized yet. Does that make sense? If anything,
So as you work as a team, you know, in
Right.
that SharePoint where you're sharing these documents,
Mhm.
if somebody is working on the document, and I'm sure it
Right.
can show that Tumela is busy working with the document, so then
Right.
Brittany can contact Tumela to say, Tumela, could you please close the Excel? That's
Right.
why it's a best practice.
assuming you're
you know.
right, assuming that you're working on an Excel browser.
Okay,
Likewise, yes.
Sorry, next question. So if she closes it, but I already transferred the data and she opens it and started working on it, would it automatically update, or you have to go back and?
Right. So for the sake of simplicity, right,
Mhm.
we're showing this whole presentation shows how to style the data, right? But when it comes to live updates, that's a whole separate ball field, which is not too complex. Well, hopefully maybe a part 2 where we can do another workshop, right? We can show you how to like import live data that constantly updates the dashboard.
So it has that feature.
It has that feature,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
Right. And of course, right, that can be for part 2. So like I said, you're a little way ahead, which is good, right?
Okay.
So we move on to the next one. This is what Power Query is.
That's what Power Query will look like.
Yes.
That's what it looks like when you are busy in Power Query. This is what the interface looks like.
Right.
The data source information that is fed to Power BI, you'll find it over here.
Right, I do want to point out we were importing employee data, so that would be on the very left.
Data fields are these are called the data fields. These columns with the headings, those are your data fields. And over to you, Frank.
Right, so I do want to point out, right, as she said, these are our data fields or header columns, right? Notice the blue boxes, right? This one has a calendar icon, this one has an ABC icon, which represents it's a letter, right? And this is very important because recognizing these specific data types dictates how Power BI is working with the data and display that data. And here's the thing, right? If Power BI knows that it's working with calendars, right, it will allow you to generate data that only fits in the category of calendars. So like I said, I do stress the importance of when you're cleaning data, pay attention to these icons. And if you want to change, oh, sorry, does someone want to say anything?
Mhm.
Oh, yes, sorry.
If you could go back one.
Yeah, you got it, no worries.
How does what is this Power BI
Yes.
know that it's an alphanumeric column?
Oh, right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you pointed that out because, like I said, the letters, right? And Power BI does not recognize it as a date, even though it has. If you give it an option, if it's numerical and alphabetical, right? It will just throw that in there.
Oh, so
Right.
you put that you
Purposefully,
put
yes.
no.
Oh, sorry.
You have to state what kind of column it is if it's alphabet.
Exactly.
Oh, so it does not identify it itself and
Right.
do that on its own. You
Right.
did that.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So, like you said, right? Power BI. Correction, actually. Power BI generates as ABCD 1 2 3 being numerical and alphabetical because Power BI does not want to jump to conclusions, right? So leave it as that, as users to clean the data ourselves. So that's why I want to stress the importance of paying attention to the data
So
types.
Power BI assumed because of what it had in the fields. So it
Right.
assumed those types, those data
Right.
types. And then you as the user can fix it, right?
Yes. Right. So
Yeah.
what's it called? It's like Power BI is not going to replace our jobs, right? It's not going to do the job for us,
Right.
but it will make visuals better and also update live data, right? So moving on to the next slide, right? If you want to change the data, just click on
Okay,
the
there we go.
icon itself, and then it give you a wide variety of what to change. Spot any errors? You already spotted, so kudos to you, right? So yeah, so we're still in step 2 in the process of cleaning this data to feed it to Power BI, right? Through Power Query. So to fix this data, we can walk you through that too.
Okay, so step 1, select the column that you want to fix, which is the one where you spotted the error. Step 2,
Right here. Yes.
go to the Home tab, which is over here, to fix that error. At the home tab, you're going to split the columns like
Right.
we've done it. We're going to split this into 2 columns.
Right.
We click
And-
on columns up there.
Exactly. So once we split the column, right, Power BI will have employment date 1 and employment date 2. And the reason why we want 2 specific columns is because we want to separate the letters and the dates.
So this is just to do the work with cleaning.
Mm. Yes.
You will then click on by the delimiter, and then you on step 5 you input the parameters.
Mm-hmm.
Each occurrence of the delimiter, you click on that one.
Right.
Because you want to separate the
Right.
the numericals from the actual words.
Right.
And then you will then click OK at the end after you've done those steps, those 5 steps.
Right. So basically, this whole process is just separating numbers and letters.
We have now 2 columns, as you can see, column number 1, column number 2. And in column 2, we have the letters. And in column 1, we have the numerals, the numericals, right?
Right.
So the steps that we've applied here will show over here, applied steps. It will record all the edits that you've made as you go. It
Right.
shows you all the edits under applied steps.
Right, and think about it this way, it's like a history browser. If you want to click on what you changed, right, or a different version of this entire data set, you can click on each individual steps. That way can take you back to what you changed prior.
Let's finish cleaning up the data. You're going to remove employment 2,
Yes, day 2.
date 2.
And, you know, as same functionality as Excel, I kind of wish I pointed out earlier, right? What we're seeing through Power Query has the same functionality as Excel, but when it comes to cleaning, right, we can left click the header and then we can be able to access the remove icon right here.
Double click header name, employment date 1, and then you rename header to employment dates. That is now the actual column name. It's just date. We did date 1, date 2 to be able to do the edits. So now that you have separated the numerics from the words, you now can call your header just date.
Right.
Because all you wanted was the numerics. You wanted the dates only and not the words.
Perfect. So now, right, before and after, the icons changed. It used to be ABC123, and now that's employment date. And we have one more thing before we finish step 2.
Let's go over some Power BI best practices for step 2 before moving forward, which is indexing rows from Power Query.
Yes, and also I do want to point out, right, the first practice was closing the Excel application. Now it's indexing rows, and I'll explain why that's very important.
I know I struggled a bit with the indexing in Excel when I was capturing
Right.
all the data that Brittany asked me to capture. And when we moved over to Power BI, I saw how useful indexing is. It can be
Right.
in helping you to summarize your data.
Right, I'll explain that more in depth later. So this is how we basically create a index, right? So step 1, add column. Step 2, click on from 1. And then
Step 3, you click close and apply to feed data to Power BI, which is this icon right over here.
right. So bear with us, right? We basically just we added numbers right next. We added a column with just numbers that go from 1 to the very bottom, right? And we basically finalized that, and now we just close and apply. So once we click close and apply, the Power Query window will just close. It will bring us back to Power BI. So let's go to the next slide. And here's our final result.
This is our final result.
Right. I know it's a lot of hassle going through cleaning the data, right? But it's good to be familiar with how to use Power Query. That way we can go get over that roadblocks to be able to actually build a dashboard.
The indexing starts with number 1.
Mm-hmm.
So when you whatever you are doing, Power BI doesn't confuse the data or you don't have to do extra work of removing the extra columns of the headings and so on, your data is starting from column number 1 straight away.
I do also
And that's the
right,
nice part of indexing.
right, and I do want to point out, right, indexing allows you to basically just keep count of all your rows, of all your employee name or all the employee IDs or all the favorite colors. Yes.
Can you give can you elaborate more on indexing?
Right. So indexing, right, is just a common practice, especially just working with data. It doesn't have to apply to Power BI, right? So let's say, for example, there's two Zoe Lees, right? And Zoe Lee is the same exact person, but she wants to basically input another favorite color, right? If you want to differentiate two different responses, you need an index to basically identify two unique responses. Does that make sense? Or I can try to see if we can find a more intuitive way to explain it. But indexing allows you to basically keep track of unique responses and also keep counts of all your employees or all your entire data set. Does that make sense? Or I'm just making it too complicated? So yeah, I feel like I lost you there. Sorry.
Like, I think what Frank is trying to explain, if we had two Britneys in the data, indexing will pick it up. That Britney is already existing. So here we're having a second Britney, so there is.
I was gonna point out that if there's two Britneys, right, that have two Britneys who are the same person, but Brittany decided to submit another response, right? We want to identify two unique responses. Does that make sense? Yes.
If you have two Britneys,
Yes.
but like you mentioned, one with a pink and maybe a green,
Right.
then what would show up? And how would it show?
Right. So let's say we manually change the data and import it back in, right? And this time it will just still be 1, 2, 3. But let's say Brittany's on number 2, and then Brittany's second response is on 3.
Okay.
Right. So 2 and 3 will represent two different unique answers. So if Power BI wants to look at index 2, it'll pick up, oh, Brittany showed up, her favorite color is pink. And then number 3, Brittany showed up again, but her different answer will be, let's say, green. So the answers are unique. And to identify unique answers, you can number them. So that's why I brought an example of two Britneys, but two different responses. And to basically see two different responses, you can add an index. Sorry, does that make sense? Sorry, I just lost you completely.
That's
So
okay.
it's like, is it the number of data points?
Data points? We'll specify as in data points, as in
Like you have, like for this page, it says 36 on the bottom, so
Right.
you have 36 different data.
Yes, as in keeping
groups,
count,
yeah.
right? Yeah, indexing also allows you to basically keep count of your total data sets.
So is it more for keeping count or more for catching repetition?
Both.
Both.
Right, because repetition, as in repetition of unique answers, if that makes sense.
What if it's the same thing entered twice?
Right, same thing as in same exact data throughout the entire row.
Mm-hmm.
Then if that's the case, right, then it will still then we can, what's it called? If it's the same exact answer throughout the entire rows, right? If that's the case, then we can tell Power BI to count the occurrences or distinct occurrences. So it'll probably most likely count that as 1.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Because it's the same.
So you have to tell it. Another thing I'm noticing,
Right.
the header on this
Right.
this data sheet. This is, you call it a table or a data sheet?
For
Right.
this case, right.
Like in Excel, the
Right.
first header, the
Right.
first row,
Mhm.
the header would be counted as 1, right?
Yes.
So the next one would be 2, where Joy Lee starts.
Right.
The table itself, the numbers would be starting maybe 1, 2, but
Oh,
then the
right,
header
right.
would be included as another line. But
Right.
this one
Yes.
don't,
Yes.
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
I'm not getting indexing. Maybe once I start using it,
Right.
I'll get it.
You
But
get it.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like I did also input a diagram, but I did not decide to put that into the presentation fully. But maybe for next time then.
Yeah.
So on
Thank
this
you for
slide-
raising that.
Yes. So yes, step 2 completed.
Step 2 is completed.
Right.
We covered how to navigate through Power Query, how to edit data types, how to clean our data with Power Query, as well as how to index data.
I have a
Yes.
question, sorry. You
Yes.
mentioned just now that when you were collecting data for Brittany that you were having difficulty. What was the difficulty that you were having, and if you can highlight it from that sheet?
I
for
had, go
example.
back to the sheet,
Yeah,
please,
you
Frank.
Indexes on the.
Was it?
The one that you just
solved.
posted.
Yeah.
My
Mhm.
challenges were up here. I had
This is-
headings in the Excel spreadsheet.
Right.
And then you'll find maybe my data is starting on row number 4.
Oh, so
Because-
it was just like the layout, you had
Yeah,
difficulty in the.
like even this the headings of the fields
Mm-hmm,
in Excel,
mm-hmm.
it wouldn't just go away unless I don't know if you had to hide or what, but
Right.
then your data is starting on row number 4 instead of row number 1.
Oh, because like if you're gonna sort it, you mean that it'll go there, or? So in this, when using this, it's pivoted, the heading is pivoted, it don't move. That's what you're saying? But in Excel, if you sort it, then the heading will move. Let's say you sort it by, alphabetical order, then the heading automatically gets incorporated in the data?
Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's why it brings back to the topic we were talking about, right? It's always best to convert a spreadsheet to a table
Okay,
because
okay.
we know what a header is, but Power BI and other Microsoft
Gotcha.
applications, exactly.
Okay.
Thank you for.
Good thing you bring that up.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we've completed step 2.
Right.
We'll move on, Frank.
Yeah, but I don't think it's gonna be
Uh-oh.
excited for quiz time. Yeah.
Question.
Mhm.
So Power BI doesn't stand alone. We wouldn't be inputting anything directly into there. We'd always need another.
I mean, like other data sources, is that
Yeah.
correct? Yeah, you would definitely import it. When you go to the navigator, right, it will give you many options to import data, right? One definitely being from Excel, but Power BI does have a feature where you can also include live data to it as well.
You can include
Right.
live data, which
But-
I think we're going to get. There's a slide we will show you.
Not yet, for the sake of simplicity though. Just Excel only, yeah. So, right.
Okay. So now it's quiz time. Can we
Yeah.
move to the next slide?
All right. Yeah. Where do we import our data? Is it A, get data, B, insert, D, research resources, or C, transform data?
Get data.
Get data.
Show hands, get
We
data.
input our data. Get data.
So all 4 get data. Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna write that down.
Uh-oh.
I just gotta keep track. 4 out of 4 is correct. Yay. Because I just want, I mean, to be fair, I'm just keeping down the record so I can see how engaging this presentation was. Yay, it's A, congrats. Woo.
Okay, then question number 2. Which Excel file should we import to Power BI? Is it
A.
A or B? When we're importing, it's a question you just asked. When we're importing an Excel file into Power BI, are we importing this one or are we importing that one?
B is in Bravo.
All 4 B?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Yes. That's 2. All right. Yes, it's B. Congrats.
Wait, you guys just tricked us if you look at it. If you go back prior to doing that,
Yeah.
you see where the arrow is
Yeah.
on the left?
Yeah.
That should have been on sheet and not employee data, right?
Yeah.
Right, okay. You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, good eye. Yes.
Okay.
All right. So. All right.
Question number 3. Which interface shows the data we imported? Is it A,
File
is it
or is
B, employee data? Is
it the enter data or is
or
it
is it
the
C,
applied steps?
applied steps? Which interface shows the data we imported?
I don't understand that question.
Remember when we import the data,
Right.
we need to now see the data that we have imported,
The name of the data.
the
So
name of the data.
the answer
Oh.
you said it was B. and-
Okay, yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
So yeah.
B. Okay. So yes, the answer is B because queries this side of the interface will just show you the name of what you imported. So let's say you imported 4 Excel files with different names. It will
They will
import
all be,
all the names on this side. While
We're just
this-
working
right.
with one, the employee data.
Yeah.
So that's the one showing here. But if we had 5 that we imported,
Exactly.
they will all 5 show over here.
Does that make sense now? Or?
If we had Daisy's data, it would show here.
That makes sense now, right? Yeah, the answer is B. So let's go to right. So question 4
Which interface keeps track of our edits?
is it A5?
C.
Yes.
Which one? D.
C.
C.
C. Oh yeah.
All 4 for C.
And I didn't even finish reading the question.
I think for 3 you said B, right? And you guys
B?
said
No, C.
C.
This one is-
For number
Okay.
3.
We were right.
Okay.
We haven't failed yet.
Okay.
This is the one that keeps. Okay.
Now 6. Which interface allows us to upload our finalized data to Power BI? Is it A, close and apply, C, enter? Perfect.
Yeah.
A for everybody? Okay,
Mhm.
perfect.
Okay. Question 6.
The answer is
It's
A.
going back.
Yes. Oh no, it just shows the answer right here.
Okay.
Perfect. Yay. Let's now go through the dashboard interface. This is going to be a quick one. So we're now in step 3. Step 1, we've already imported our data. Step 2, we clean and transform our data. Now just step 3. And this is just the interface, right? Right here, the data section has all the names of our column headers. If we want to click on visuals, right? If let's say we want to do a pie chart, we click on the pie chart icon and drag it to this blank space right here. If you want to stylize our visuals, we go to this paintbrush icon right here. So if you want to change the colors, the fonts, it's all in there. And if you want to go back to Power Query once more, you can always go to transform data. And if you want to view data in a table format, then as in like an actual tabular format, then we click on this icon. So hypothetically, if we did click on this icon, it will take us here, back to a, how you normally see an Excel spreadsheet. If you want to go back to your actual dashboard itself, just click on the icon above the spreadsheet icon. And now we can build our dashboard.
Could we
Yes.
see that again?
You got it.
2 steps.
Right here. One more slide back.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
One more slide back.
Yes, you got it.
So to view the data in the table, okay, you click the little table on the side.
Yeah. So hypothetically, we
What is
click
this?
on it.
What is this? The icon for this app look like?
For the right here to go to the data table. It will.
So you see like how Excel has that. You click on Microsoft Word. Everybody have their symbol. What does the symbol for this look like?
There should
It's
be.
exactly
I
that.
think it looks like
Oh,
little bars.
Yeah.
The
Oh, no.
Power BI.
It's exactly
looks
like that.
Oh
bars.
no, right.
Power
No,
BI.
the little bar icon will show you the dashboard, but the table format will be like an actual spreadsheet icon. If that makes sense.
Okay.
So yeah, we click on that, it will take us here. But if you want to go back to the dashboard, then go back to the Power BI icon that's above the table. So let's build our dashboard very quick and easy, right? So
Okay. So what we have covered so far in step 1 is insert correct data. In step 2, we showed you how to transform the data with Power Query. And then in step 3, you drag and click visuals to display your data.
and when I say drag and click, you just drag and click, and it's easy as that. So
Yeah,
this is the
what
end product we want,
you get
but
at the end.
we're not just gonna show you a dashboard. We're gonna show you how it's done. So step 1, you create a slicer, right? You drag that slicer and you put it on the fields. To format your slicer, you go to the visuals tabs as we covered and go from vertical list to drop down. So you have a drop down menu. You just show up right there, drop down. And step 3, you create a card. A card just basically displays any data that, as long as you input a value into it, then it'll just display data. So we repeat this step 3 times of creating a card. So that way we have a row right here that shows the card, 3 cards, and the employee name. And I'll show you why that's very important. So drag and click again. We're gonna put that card right next to the slicer. And I'll explain why that's very important. So once we repeat step 3, we'll show you the information right here. And now it's time to stylize. So go to the visual icon and you can add visual borders and shadows to it. And now you can interact with the slicer, but pay attention to this, right? So based on the people you click on, right, it will show you the favorite color, its full-time, its status, either is a full-time or intern, and their employee ID. So we've created basically a representation of all the employee name statuses, or data sets. So now let's actually build a visual. So step 7, we create a pie chart. And then we drag and click Oh, sorry, is there a question or no? Right. Okay, perfect. So step 8, we click and drag data fields, right? So once we're creating a pie chart, I do want to say you gotta be wary of what you're dragging and clicking because each visual has different properties. So for a pie chart, it has a legend, and to give values to that, it will automatically put count of employees. So in this scenario, right, we have legend, that being employee type, and the values is basically counting the amount of employee types we have. So I'm not sure if you can see this, it will just count the occurrences of each employee being an intern and each occurrences of a employee being a full-timer. And in step 9, we basically create a tree map. And then again, right, a tree map has different categories, that being a favorite color. A tree map has different properties compared to a pie chart. Recall, right, a pie chart has legends, but now a tree map has category. And once again, for the values, we're doing the count of occurrences of favorite colors. So that's what's gonna be displayed. And step 11, we just created an area chart. The same repetition. We drag and click visuals and we enter data to it. But then again, be wary of the properties of each visual. In this case, right, the properties for a area chart is being X and Y axis. So we're basically checking the employment date and kind of employee name. And then step 13, I think it's pretty fun, just style it, right, to make it look visually appealing. And that's basically the end product.
How did all those colors come on?
Oh, it automatically sets up by itself.
That's why let's go back now to indexing. Brittany showing twice. It's because each index number, it's got an effect to when you're summarizing things.
Right, because it does also keep count of these reoccurrences as well. So yeah, so that's how you style it, right? We're able to create this dashboard, and this is basically the final result. And if we go to, I think, tutorial 1, it allows us to basically show loading time
That's
soon.
the icon, the bars.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Well, let's say, that's basically it.
Oh,
Shows
okay.
right here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can basically interact and play with it.
3 in the presentation.
So like if I was doing it, I would
Right.
change that pink color to brown because brown
Oh,
is
yes,
actually
yes,
the
yes.
favorite color.
Mhm.
Okay.
So we can go back to like the actual visual icon and then
And then
manually
select it and change
yes,
the color. Okay.
Exactly. Yes. So that's basically the end of our presentation.
Also, Power BI,
Yeah.
I don't know its colors.
No. Right. So that's basically it. Yeah, that's basically a wrap of everything. So
Thank you.
thank you.
That was great.
Good job.